What's going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to share with you my personal plan of attack to lose about 10 pounds, trying to get back down to the weight I was at about 2 summers ago in 2022. I'm sitting at around 215-ish pounds right now. Back then, I was around like 203, low 200s, but around like 205. Meant to do it last summer, call it the summer cut that never happened, so I wanted to kind of get back down to it. Actually, was even planning on doing this a few months ago before summer, and again, just wasn't really feeling the motivation to do that. And why I'm feeling this motivation now, I don't really know, because I feel really comfortable as I am right now, but I thought it might be kind of interesting to share with you guys my tips. We'll see if I can actually stick to it. I'll give you guys a follow-up video when I do get down to that weight. Hopefully I do make it. If I don't, I'll also share that as well. But I thought at the very least you guys might get something out of this, maybe a glimmer into what my diet looks like. I get questions like this all the time. There's a number of reasons why I don't go into it, but I'm gonna do my best, especially in this video, to be as concise as possible. And that's one of the reasons I don't, because I can go in rabbit holes and rants that could make a video last easily over an hour. So I'll do my best to keep this very concise. But as always, especially for you guys who are doing some sort of a summer diet or something that really works for you guys, definitely share those tips down below in the description box. I'm sure they'll help many people. Now, before I lay out my steps, a little bit of background context for me so you guys may relate to my situation. I'll first just say that I am not a strict eater by any sense of the means. I've tried pretty much every diet there was under the sun, going back over 20 years, following all sorts of diet books, back to the Warrior Diet, Gary Taubes' Good Calories, Bad Calories, all sorts of things going up and down throughout my history of just learning about health and fitness, to the point now where I think the best diet approach for me personally and many people is really sticking to some sort of diet you can adhere to that is somewhat sensible, that isn't limiting, and really doesn't cause any kind of disordered eating patterns. And unfortunately, I find this to be the case for many people. I could say a lot more on this topic. I'm very passionate about it, but I would definitely recommend you guys check out the book, Health Food Junkie. It's kind of an old book, but gets into this whole concept of where we're at now in this nutritional landscape. I also do want to highlight the fact that while I do eat whatever I want, don't have any food rules, I think trying to find that sweet spot of diet adherence is very important, to the point where your lifestyle factors, your activity, your nutrition, all kind of blend together, where you're not at that point of really overeating or undereating, but at the same time, you're not being hyper conscious and anal about every single thing that you're consuming that is taking up your whole entire day, organizing your meals and worrying about your diet. So starting off with step one or tip one, this might sound like I'm contradicting what I just said, but this would be probably the strictest quote unquote rule loosely that I would say. And I would say most people that even if you're not following a rule, you're probably following some sort of pattern of eating. And first with that, I'm saying set some sort of set meal times in the day. I won't get into the whole fasting, intermittent fasting, or periods of time, ideal eating patterns. I've known people who are very successful in high frequency eating. In fact, my relatives, my dad, they used to share growing with a farm how many meals they had a day. It was actually crazy how much those guys ate, but they had a lot of meal frequency, but not a whole lot throughout each meal. They didn't have gigantic, huge servings like we're used to. And I also know people that don't eat a whole lot but seem to do really well. So I think it depends on your activity level and your preferences, but at the end of the day, of course, it's going to be about overall caloric intake and what your own body can actually handle and assimilate in your given nutrition. So with me personally, I'm going to try and stick to 3 squared meals with maybe 1 nighttime snack. Now that seems pretty simplistic, but a lot of times what happens, we got a lot of food in the house, a lot of little kids, and so I'm often kind of nibbling and snacking on things. Oftentimes I'm not even hungry just because I'm bored. And this is especially the case when you're at home, maybe you're not at the office or at work, or this can be the case, especially if you're going to work, people bringing treats and stuff. But I'm gonna stick to just 3 solid meals. So when I make those meals, I'm gonna tell myself almost like I'm a prisoner or I'm at like summer camp or something like that. Whatever's on my plate, whatever I have planned and eating in those 3 squared meals, that's all I'm gonna consume, and that's really it. Now, step 1 might have seemed a little vague and not too specific, but moving on to step 2, this is where we kind of really dial down which of those 3 meals is the biggest culprit. And you could say it's as a whole, trying to attack the biggest obstacle at hand. It could be the fact that you overeat at lunchtime, you go to work, or you go out to eat a lot, say during lunch, you carry out, something like that. But identifying what is your biggest obstacle. And for step number 2, me personally, is always dinner time. Even though I'm not hungry at breakfast, if you took me out to breakfast, I would get everything from pancakes, sausage, bacon, everything, and I could easily eat a giant breakfast if I wanted to. But dinner is always, for me, the biggest area where it's the end of the day, I got my whole family around me, I'm often eating off my kids' plates because I hate wasting food. It's one of the biggest pet peeves about me is seeing food thrown away. I'm not a big leftover person, so I will eat not only my plate and probably get some seconds, I will eat everyone else's kind of scraps as like a human garbage disposal. But for me going further, knowing that that is my big obstacle as far as where a lot of excess calories really come from, Also, my body tells me that because oftentimes at night when I do that, I'm pretty sluggish for about that hour after I'm eating. So at dinner time, I'm really gonna treat that very specific to that rule number 1, and then I'm just gonna stick to whatever's on my plate. I'm gonna stick to whatever that meal portion is, finish it, and tell myself that is gonna be it. Again, that sounds almost too simplistic, but for me personally, just by doing that alone, I will have shaved off at least 500, possibly 600, 700 calories easily in what I would have done if I would have had seconds and also eating off all the scraps off my kids' plates. So assuming that I'm following step number 1 and step number 2 to the T, what I know is gonna happen is I'm gonna feel pretty hungry. And so this next area of foods are things I use to kind of overcome those cravings and also the appetite. And sometimes, I don't want to say these always or can replace a meal, but sometimes for me they can. Usually it might be something little like maybe lunchtime, or there might be a snack. And if I didn't mention it, I will have 3 square meals, but also a nighttime snack. So I forgot to mention that about point number 1. But I'm gonna share with you guys some things that help me kind of curb my appetite overall. First thing would be some sort of flavored water. I actually usually get True Lemon. I was at the store the other day, didn't have it, but this is just Crystal Light. So I get something like this, get a big thing of water. I think I have like a liter of water. It's like a big glass or stein that I have, and I'll put some water in here to kind of curb the appetite. But throughout many of the years, like many of you guys, I've gotten all sorts of protein bars. I personally, even though Quest, I used to kind of hate them, got over them, but I do love the Quest peanut butter protein ones. Those taste delicious. My wife turned me on to these barbell protein bars. I actually like the caramel, I think it's salted caramel peanut or something like that. That's a certain one. I'll link on the screen here. I'll also link all these things in the description box. There's a link to Amazon to all these things I'm talking about in case you guys are curious. This thing, just giving you one little example. This is also a subscribe and save product I get off Amazon every month. These are definitely pricey, but again, because they're so expensive, I don't use them that often. But these make for like a good lunch to actually fill you up, and they're relatively low in calories, so like 240 calories. And again, they taste delicious. One thing I recommend to a lot of people, which are very expensive, but also help curb my appetite, if you are a chip lover, are these Quest chips. They are very expensive, but what I tell people, I actually get these through Subscribe and Save, which just came recently, is that because they are so expensive, I'm not gonna overeat these because these cost a lot of money. But I love potato chips, specifically Doritos, one of my favorites. So these things taste really good. They're high protein in the sense that it'll curb your appetite. Get a little bit of extra protein today. Not that you have to worry too much about that, but I'll get into that actually right now. Protein powders, I have a little bit of a protein powder addiction. I wouldn't rely on them solely as a big abundance of your food, but for protein powders, I just love the taste. They're almost like a treat to me, so I will supplement, use them alongside like fruit smoothies, or if I need some protein throughout the day. I generally only worry about protein at those 3 squared meals, and at nighttime, I try to consume roughly about 25 grams to 50 grams a serving. I don't think you really need that much protein, and I won't go too much into this. Again, this could be a whole nother video, but protein is one of those macronutrients where it has a high thermic effect in the sense that your body requires more energy to break it down. So I don't want to say it's like free calories, but if you look at some of the studies where they overfed people protein, they found that a lot of those calories actually didn't necessarily equate to weight gain when they overfed people protein, say from protein powder. But again, you got to assume most protein you're consuming in whole food form is going to have some like fats and added calories along with it. I'm just saying overall protein, very satiating also as well. So it can be a great kind of macronutrient to incorporate that. And that's why you find protein incorporated into almost all dietary programs. And whenever they do a dietary intervention or study between different diet programs, they always want to make sure they match protein because it would just be unfair if one had the higher protein content and one did not. All I have to say, I do love protein powders. You don't have to go crazy with them, but you'll see on the screen here all the different stuff that I do use. And then as far as like exercise tweaks or things like that, I hate to say it because this could be another thing we can get into a long debate on. It's always been a notorious debate. I do add a little bit more cardiovascular activity, and I just find in the summer times in general, I kind of like to. Last summer, I actually didn't do that as much, so that might say something. But in that summer of 2022, when I was 10 pounds lighter, cardiovascular activity was incorporated a little more heavily into my exercise programming, at least 3 to 4 times a week, doing jump rope or running. Now I got the stair climber, using that a lot. Haven't been using my fan bike actually as much as I thought I was going to, but using the stair climber and also just going outside, walking, running, those are the kind of other forms of cardiovascular activity I'm trying to squeeze in there. Now that's pretty much the gist of it. There's reason why I'm not going super specific and deep in the weeds. I don't think you have to. All 3 of these big tips have overarching consequences in ultimately at the end of the day, reducing total caloric intake, in the sense that I'm not going to worry and be anal about tracking every single calorie, using a diet log. Nothing's necessarily wrong with that. But for me personally, not just for the sake of time, which drive myself mentally crazy with gymnastics, these are overarching lifestyle factors that if I change these habits will have dramatic consequences in my overall weight loss. But then last but not least, because I know people get asked this question all the time, what supplements do I use? Again, I will link down below in the Amazon description box some supplements that I do use. The only company that I kind of more or less endorse, because I do believe in their products and because they're great people, USA made products and manufacturing, would be EFX. You can check out the interviews I did with them, but I love their USA made creatine. Also, shameless plug, it's great for you guys as well because they gave you guys a very special aggressive discount code along with free shipping of 20% off anything EFXsports.com. So sorry for that shameless plug, but not an endorsement, not a promotional video. But that is it, guys. Trying to make this somewhat as concise as possible. When I reach that goal, I will give you guys an update video. We will see at the time of this release how long that actually took me to accomplish. That's it, guys. I will see you on the next video.